Hey everybody, Northern Lion here again, just back from PDX Con in Miami, Florida to talk about a couple more of the games that I saw there. So today I'm going to be talking about Magicka Wizard Wars and War of the Vikings. And they say in journalism, don't bury the lead, right? If you got something good, put it in the headline. Here goes. Magicka Wizard Wars was probably my game of the show from PDX Con 2014. And it's not like an E3 or a PAX thing because we didn't see like 200 games. We only saw 6 or 7 at best. Maybe 8, actually, now that I think about it. But anyway, it was the game that impressed me the most, and what's really interesting about it is that it's the game when I went into the convention that I thought I was going to be the least excited to play, but I'll explain why. And I'm grouping Wizard Wars and War of the Vikings together because they're kind of similar in that respect. They both very pleasantly surprised me when I was there. I had a lot of fun playing both of them, and their paradox is like more multiplayer-focused efforts. So I figure that's the reason to lump these together, like I lumped together the grand strategy stuff. So what makes Wizard Wars, which is what we're going to start with, what makes it so exciting? Well, let's talk about what it is first. Wizard Wars, at least up until the point that we saw at the convention, was a 4v4 Magicka based, and you know what Magicka is at this point if you're watching this video. You know, it sold like 2.8 million copies. You create spells from elements on the fly. They have predictable and unpredictable effects. They do damage to enemies. Sometimes they do damage to your teammates. You all have a lot of fun laughing around in co-op. This is the competitive game based on that. And it was 4v4, at least the original mode is 4v4, team-based, and it kind of feels similar to like a casual Magicka-style MOBA. And that's not to write off anybody who plays it very competitively, because I'm sure there's a very high skill ceiling, but it kind of feels like a little bit less esportsy than something like Dota 2 or League of Legends. And that is why, like, when originally I played it, I was like, you know what, this is fun, but if I'm going to play a pseudo MOBA, then it's going to be Dota 2 or it's going to be League because of the esports potential. And that's fine. Some people are going to be into that. Some people aren't. Magicka Wizard Wars has a community online already. It's in alpha, paid alpha, and open beta starting a little bit later this year. The duel mode is a complete game changer, I think. Instead of being like perceived, and I do think it has a little bit of a perception problem. I'm speaking very bluntly in this video because compared to the grand strategy stuff, we actually got hands-on with this stuff and we've been around it for a while. But anyway, I think it has a bit of a perception problem. A lot of people, myself included, originally thought Magicka was kind of like a MOBA. It was in the MOBA space. The duel mode, it completely changes this to now it's like there's a MOBA part and there's a fighting game part. And I'll explain what the duel mode is because you're probably a little confused if you didn't see the stream. It's basically 4 men enter an arena. 4 wizards enter an arena, I should say. And then 2 at a time, they get plucked from the stands to go fight each other one-on-one using the same kind of like element-based spellcasting and countering system that works in, Wizard Wars as it stands right now. But it's 1-on-1 instead of 4-on-4. So it's really just you and your opponent down there like battling it out with the elements and your wits. The other 2 people watch from the stands during this. Now the winner stays and the loser gets plucked back into the stands and then you rotate. So if you win 6 in a row, you just win the game and you rotate. Everyone gets at least a chance to play you twice, but then you can get back and forth because maybe the winner will lose, and then somebody else will have a chance to build up like 4 wins, and maybe you could have, anyway, you get the idea of how it goes back and forth. But it really now comes across, in the duel mode at least, as like an accessible fighting game that I really, really enjoyed. And why did I really enjoy it? Well, a lot of fighting games, I want to get into it because I love the swings, and I love the fact that it's just you versus your opponent. So you can't really blame anything else for your loss, and I usually do lose at games like these. But what do I dislike about trying to get into the fighting game community? Combos are incomprehensible. The community is already so large and kind of impenetrable that it's very difficult to get into, and sometimes it's a little abrasive. Not that that's not the norm for online in general, but you hopefully understand what I mean by that. And when you get beat a lot of the time, you don't understand why. Whereas in Magicka Wizard Wars, I feel like it alleviates a lot of those problems, and I'm not saying this is on the same level as like, oh, it's going to be at EVO next year, it's going to be playing at Street Fighter. I have no idea what the meta's like or how the balance is. What I will say is that it alleviates a lot of those problems. Combos are easy to cast. There's 8 elements, I believe, and so there's endless permutations, but it's pretty easy to figure out what an augmentation will do to a spell. So just like being able to do damage is relatively easy. It's also the case where counters are really obvious. So if you're going up against an opponent and he constantly uses like arcane and lightning, you can actually put like an arcane lightning shield on you and then his spam tactics will no longer work. Whereas even if somebody's like throwing Hadokens at you all the time, you still have to time your jumps appropriately, or I'm not going to embarrass myself by talking more about what I don't really understand and am ignorant of the fighting game community. But anyway, it seems like if someone's casting lightning and arcane on you all the time, you just put on lightning and arcane shield, and then you're like, well, now I do twice as much damage relative to you because yours is a lot of your elements are being resisted by the shield that I just put on. Also, when an opponent like casts a spell or, uses a command or a combo on you, there's almost like a little bit of not a lag time, but it takes a second and it's visible for it to come to you. If they shoot a rock at you, you have a second where you can see that there's a rock coming, and if you're very, very quick, you can put on a rock shield. So I think it's easier to adapt to your enemy, and it's possible to actually counter them on the fly, even if you're not a master. So what we saw is that when we first started playing, people were like spamming, and we played for like an hour and a half, then plus the stream, which was like another hour. So we would first start playing, and it would just be like people would use the same combo over and over and over and over and over. And then people would get used to that combo, and the metagame started to evolve very quickly. So, we were using the ass combo a lot. That's like arcane, lightning, lightning, because that's what S is. I think A might be lightning, S is arcane, but anyway. Then people started putting up like exclusively arcane shields, exclusively arcane and lightning shields, and then we would cast other spells to get around that, and then that like fell out of favor. Like, I don't know if you saw the stream, but I was going up against Hollow, and basically I always used arcane lightning shield, and he just came out and threw 3 rocks at me right away, and I didn't have time to react, and I died. I thought that was really awesome how if you know the people you're going up against, like it completely changes your playstyle. Anyway, I was very impressed by duel mode. I think it's a lot of fun to play, and I think it's a lot of fun to watch, and it's revitalized my interest in Wizard Wars a little bit. I probably still will not spend much time playing the 4v4 over the course of the rest of my life, but I definitely want to play a lot more of the duel mode. I could see myself playing that in my downtime. I could see us playing it on the NLSS for sure, and I could see making videos on it, just because it's so fun. It's kind of like Nidhogg or, Towerfall or something like that, where it's just you and your opponent, and it's a really creative and crazy and fun way to play. It needs a little bit of work right now. It's still... and if you're in the stands, it's kind of boring. What we were talking with the developers is it would be awesome not just to be able to watch, but maybe like they would have a trainer up there basically. So whenever somebody cast a spell, it would pop up for you, and whichever person in the stands like countered it quickly got like an in-game currency bonus. Or sorry, countered it, not counted it quickly. Like countered it the quickest got like an in-game currency bonus or something like that, just so you can practice and and it kind of rewards more active viewing, because if you're watching someone and they're constantly using like arcane and lightning, and as an example I use a lot, let's say they're constantly using ice and rock, like throwing ice rocks at you, then you can be like, okay, it pops up like ice rock, and then if you type in the shield that would stop that, or at least stop most of the damage from that, then you get in-game currency or something like that. It's just something to like practice spell training while you're waiting, so you're not just kind of like walking around. I mean, that's really all we saw that was new of Magicka Wizard Wars, but I'm very excited about it, and again, it was the most fun I had playing a game at the convention, and it had kind of an uphill battle, because I had a bit of a prejudice against it. Not to say that the 4v4 is a bad game, it's just not my style, but the duel mode I think is really cool. If they can somehow find a way to get people to, not that it's a tough sell necessarily, but if they can get people aware of the duel mode and how cool it is and get more and more people to try it out, I think it could grow a community beyond just the people that are going to kind of run off from the 4v4 mode and join the duel mode. I think it's definitely worth checking out. The duel mode is not in the game as of right now, as far as I know. There is an open beta. Let me get the fact sheet up here, and I'll give you the actual distinct and honest answer. The duel mode is coming. Well, open alpha is coming this is taking a second here. Don't worry about it. The open alpha is coming in spring, it seems, but I apologize. I feel a little bit disorganized now. Here we go. Let's open this file. Oh, open alpha is coming late spring. Sorry, open beta is coming late spring 2014. So I expect that is when that will be added, and keep that in your mind for when we reach the point where it's late spring, because I'm going to be on there in the duel mode. I'm going to be having a really good time with it, and I think that this definitely makes Magicka Wizard Wars a more attractive product overall. Now, I'm going to be talking about War of the Vikings, so I'm going to take a quick break here and have some tea, because my voice is still killing me, and then I'll talk about what's new with War of the Vikings. So, I am back to talk about War of the Vikings. Now, War of the Vikings, kind of, when I went into the convention, I felt a little bit similar to that as I did about Magicka Wizard Wars. On Wizard Wars, I was like, well, why would I play Wizard Wars if I could play Dota 2 or League of Legends? Well, they gave me an answer. For War of the Vikings, I was like, I already play a lot of Chivalry, I play a decent amount of Deadliest Warrior, like, is there enough room in my life for 2 melee, close quarters, combat type simulators? And I think the answer to that question is yes, maybe not for everybody. I kind of equated it to like first-person shooters, in that originally, let's go back, it kind of felt like War of the Roses and Chivalry were directly competing, because they were like the first games of their kind, right? But War of the Vikings, having played a very decent amount of both now, both Chivalry, Deadliest Warrior, Chivalry, and War of the Vikings, they're starting to differentiate themselves, and they feel very good in their own very different ways, if that makes sense. First-person shooter players, they don't say, well, I'm not going to play Shadow Warrior. I already played Counter-Strike. It's kind of a bad example because Shadow Warrior doesn't have multiplayer. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. I think we're coming maybe to the point where both of these games have a place where people can play both of them, or they can play one of them and enjoy it. And maybe, the perception was that Chivalry basically did a lot of things better than War of the Roses did. I think it's more of like a lateral move now. Instead of like, oh, Chivalry's better than War of the Roses, it's more like, well, I'd prefer this game to that game, if that makes sense. Why? Am I blowing smoke up your ass? No. We played a bunch of it, and everybody was basically coming at it from the same perspective, as I just told you right there. War of the Roses moves a lot faster than Chivalry and Chivalry Deadliest Warrior, and I think that's its greatest strength. If you look at something like the Arena mode, and there are various multiple objective-based and like conquest-based game modes and team deathmatch, you know those already. The Arena-based mode is the hook for me, and it's team v team. Let's say 5 people on one team, 5 people on the other team, or 4 people on one team, 4 people on the other team. Really close, really tight maps. If you die, you can wait for a revive in case your teammates get a strength and numbers advantage, and then they can come back and heal you, or you just tap out, then you're done. You don't come back until the round's over. This is something that does exist in Chivalry Deadliest Warrior and Chivalry in the form of Last Team Standing, but I find it so boring, and I know there's people that really like it, and it's strategic, and it has tactical depth, positioning, things like that. I usually find that I spend like the first 45 seconds of any Last Team Standing on Chivalry running to the battlefield, maybe fighting for like 20 seconds, and then waiting for another minute and a half for the round to end. In War of the Vikings on an arena match, it's like boom, 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 people are dying within 5 seconds. Sometimes there's swings as people get brought back to life, but usually things are like, it's a flash and then it's over. And I really, really like that because you spend more time doing things as opposed to just running straight to the battlefield. And I think the fact that there are tighter, more focused maps really benefits them there. When we were playing it felt a lot of fun. It felt like it rewarded aggression, and it awarded team play, but like really fast team play. There's not a whole lot of high-level strategic planning that we did when we played, but there is like, okay, get over here now, not like, we're going to go over this ridge and blah, 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 which, again, is going to appeal to some people and not appeal to other people. I really think that sorry, I'm just looking at my notes here, the arena mode, it makes the game feel a lot like, and this carries over into a lot of the maps, actually, Conquest especially, which is the like capture the point tug-of-war type game mode. In War of the Roses, I actually felt basically the same as I did about Deadliest Warrior's Last Team Standing mode, where I spent like half of my time spawning and running or riding a horse to the battlefield. It doesn't feel that way now. It happens much, much more quickly, and I think it's a very positive change that makes the game feel like a tighter and faster version of War of the Roses, which might sound like it's an incremental change, but actually those are the major problems that a lot of people had with War of the Roses. So I think War of the Vikings improves on that in many ways. And again, and I'm not a businessman, and I'm not going to do the Jay-Z quote, but I think this is a game that struggles a little bit with a communication issue, in that a lot of people, when they see it, they say this is just, War of the Roses 2. Why would I pick this up? But it really, the changes that are made are not subtle, but they seem subtle. They make an enormous difference. Other stuff, interstitial stuff, we'll talk about the game. In War of the Roses, coins and experience were both kind of tied to the damage that you got, or you did in game, and you got extra points for headshots and killing, but mostly it was like, if you take your axe and you hit somebody with it, you do 33 damage, you get 33 experience, 33 coins. What that meant, as they were explaining it to us, is that high-level War of the Roses players could sometimes get, 10 times the amount of points consistently that new players would get. So they'd get access to better weapons, or at least, newer weapons. Not that necessarily affects their quality. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I don't know. I didn't play more than like 20 hours of War of the Roses, so I don't know. And I was always very bad at it. But it would take a new player 10 times as long to get to the point that a good player was at. And there's something to be said for that, rewarding people based on their merit, but additionally, that's frustrating for new players. So what they've done is they made it so experience is tied to the points that you get in game, which is basically a function of your damage, but coins tick up at a real-time rate that is consistent for everybody. So you gain like 1 coin every minute or something like that, or 1 coin every 6 seconds. They didn't actually tell us exactly what the rate was, and so I can't really report that to you. But your coins get modified a little bit based on your performance as well. And those are also gated to time. So if you play for like 3 hours and you play better than you usually do, you'll earn more coins than you usually do by like a factor of 20% or something like that. But after that timer ticks over and the 3 hour period or the 4 hour period is done, you go back to the base level of gaining coins. And experience is used to unlock items, like tiers of items. So I might need to be level 30 to unlock this sweet helmet or something like that. But coins are used to buy the items, so they're hoping that keeps a little bit more parity between new players and experienced players, or inexperienced players and experienced players. In terms of customization, new things that we saw in the game. There's capes. Capes have been added, so you can make your own like Robin Hood type character. There are male and female characters for both of the races, the Vikings and the Saxons. And I believe that's not gated to class either. You could be like a female berserker, or you could be, a female archer. It's not just gated to like a ranged class, as it might typically be in some other games, which is cool. Whether or not it's historically accurate, we were told it's more historically accurate for the Vikings than it is for the Saxons, but whatever. Why not, right? This is a game where you are, throwing axes, and people come back to life after they catch one in the face and walk around with it for like 20 minutes. So historical accuracy, I think, is not necessarily that important, and that's okay. There's also, you can customize your shields with runes and glyphs and things like that. It's not 100% customizable, but there's many, many different, basically, templates and sliders that you can change and colors that you can deal with and runes that you can use, which is neat, although it's not necessarily my cup of tea. I just play as like a vanilla character most of the time. But what's really cool is they're talking about, or I think we actually saw it in the game, there's like a beard slot for characters, and what they're thinking of doing is making it so like more impressive beards are really gated to experience. So as an experienced player, you might be saying like, oh, that sucks that new players are going to be able to compete with me and like we'll have the same items. Remember, experience is tied to your actual performance, not just how long you play the game. Like experience points, I should say, is tied to your performance. And they're thinking like we'll have like a long gray beard that goes like down to your knees, and that'll be like a level 60 unlock. So if you saw someone with a really long gray beard in game, you'd be like, oh shit, that guy's really good. So that's really all I have to say about War of the Vikings. I had a really good time playing it. I'm really sold on Wizard Wars, the duel mode in particular. I'm not 100% sure I'm going to spend much more time in War of the Vikings, but I did come away feeling vastly improved, and it does seem more of a competitor to Chivalry, but not necessarily in direct competition. It just seems more of a choice now, because, and again, this is a little offensive to say, but the narrative that kind of seemed to develop around War of the Roses and Chivalry was like, oh, dude, you play War of the Roses? You should really play Chivalry instead. I don't think that's the case anymore from what we've seen and from what I've played at both games. War of the Vikings, I think, has a place. It might have a place for more people. It might have a place for less people. I don't know. But it's definitely not just a reskinned War of the Roses. It works really well, and I think they took to heart a lot of the feedback that came out of War of the Roses, and they're using it smartly to make decisions that'll make players more happy in War of the Vikings without necessarily compromising their original belief. So that's Wizard Wars and War of the Vikings, both of Paradox's multiplayer-focused games that we actually got like probably 2+ hours each between the stream that we did and the demo that we did. And everyone seemed to have basically the same impressions. Everyone came away from both of those games being like, this is better than I expected it to be. And I really think Wizard Wars impressed me the most out of basically anything I played at the convention. So that's going to do it for this episode. There's already been a video on the grand strategy stuff that you can go back and watch if you missed it. Still to come, there's going to be a video preview, and I'll probably lump Rune Master, which is Paradox Development Studios' new huge 100-hour, hex-based Heroes of Might and Magic style strategy RPG, and I'll put that together with Warlock 2: The Exile, the sequel to Warlock Masters of the Arcane. If you enjoyed the video and you're enjoying the series so far, make sure to click the like button. It helps out a great deal. And of course, subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this in the future. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.